Hello and welcome to our monthly This Week in FM editorial review. I'm Daisy and I'm joined by my colleagues Ella and Bailey. We want to give our readers an insight into what we discuss as an editorial team, so we're just here to give you an update on a few key stories we've covered recently and the themes that they've highlighted. Of course, the big news last week was that Chartwell's, part of Compass Group, were accused of profiteering from this free school meals scheme. On the evening of Thursday the 14th of January, we received an official statement from Compass Group boss Robin Mills, in which he personally apologised for the issue, stating that the quality and quantity of the produce and the images on Twitter fell short of their usual standards. Ella, what did you make of this story?
Thank you, Daisy. As a team, we were fairly surprised about this. As you mentioned, Chartwell's is part of the wider Compass Group, a company very well known for its promoting itself as progressive, promoting its ethical practices. As we know, Compass Group is in fact a member of the Marcus Rashford Child Poverty Task Force, which focuses on the review of the free school meal system. So it's more than a little bit embarrassing for them, really. We've covered a lot of their charity endeavours recently. Over Christmas, they donated surplus food and other food packages to charity. They also partner with the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust. But as well as that, they famously declined to take up the job retention bonus scheme for any of its employees. So basically 21,000 Compass staff members were furloughed on the coronavirus job retention scheme, meaning the company could have benefited from over £20 million worth of bonus. Last year, they also signed up to the Race at Work Charter, demonstrating a clear commitment to improving outcomes for BAME employees in the UK. So this is definitely an F company that would usually pride itself on being socially and ethically conscious, which made the accusations all the more shocking, really.
Yeah, absolutely. As you point out, some fantastic commitments from Compass Group this year, so it was a bit of a surprise. I remember fairly recently, in just November last year, they were also given recognised service provider status by the Living Wage Foundation. MD Robin Mills said at that point, by tackling low pay head on, together we can make a real difference to the lives of our people and in turn their families. So it seems low income families are firmly on their radar and they recognise the difference those types of initiatives make. This effort certainly doesn't seem to be aligned with those ethics. What was the reaction like on social media, Bailey?
This has been an example that really shows the power of social media in holding companies accountable. However, it also highlighted the narrow-sighted nature of that media and the way in which something can spread and mutate without the full information from the get-go. The photo originally posted claimed that the contents of the food package was meant to represent £30 in replacement of the meal vouchers of that value for a full fortnight.
Chartwell's initial response straight away claimed that this was in fact representing £10.50 of food that was meant for 1 week, and that included packaging and distribution for only a 5-day period that would be school lunches.
The thing is, obviously, £30 worth of vouchers for 2 weeks should be equivalent to about £15 for 1 week. So there's still some confusion on the issue and what the government even advise these providers to give the schools in the first place. The allowance per day is £2.34, and following this incident, the government have released information that they intend to increase this to £3.50 now, due to the media frenzy and outrage that was surrounding it. Unlike the first lockdown, schools are given a grant from the government this time, so they can then spend that on vouchers for the pupils' parents to get the food from supermarkets or vendors themselves, or the schools can choose to get a contractor to supply parcels, which the government are intending as a way to ensure more balanced meals. But as we've seen from photos and posts on social media, there hasn't been that much balance actually in the first instance of this scheme.
In response to a tweet from Marcus Rashford calling for a review of the supply chain, Prime Minister Boris Johnson branded the issue disgraceful and confirmed that those affected by it would be reimbursed.
So Chartwell is one of the main suppliers that schools have been able to choose from.
Although the organisation wasn't named by the PM, it's believed that's the company he was referring to in these tweets due to how they've been highlighted in the public eye.
So MPs Zara Sultana and Keir Starmer shared screenshots of the government guidance for food parcels compared with what Chartwells has provided in that original picture that went viral. So in the comparison that the MPs shared, it shows that it's the parcel that Chartwells provided was actually rather similar to what the government were advising in the first place, which is clearly not really enough for a child to have per week.
Next, we saw Secretary of State for Education Gavin Williamson and Children's Minister Vicky Ford arrange a meeting with school catering firms to ensure food parcels would be brought up to a satisfactory standard. And following this, Chartwells did respond themselves with an image of what the food parcels were supposed to look like, as you see here, in which they tagged the Department for Education and Vicky Ford, who had promised to investigate the matter.
In the nature of the reshares and retweets, many other parents reached out to show the content of their free school meal packages. And the variety and quality of the packages varies really drastically from area to area and company to company. And I have a few examples of them here. Some schools themselves also took to social media to show off their own parcel offerings and the contracts that they had organised. And that sometimes was met with good feedback, and sometimes that was met with less than happy feedback, which I've got an example of here. Other people picked at the profits of Chartwells and Compass Group as a company in particular, including highlighting their CEO salary. And others compared it to the subsidised prices of meals in the House of Commons, noting how far the money would go for meals for MPs. One tweet from a barrister and legal commentator listed 6 reasons why we shouldn't hand out food parcels, and instead that we should continue to give school meal vouchers to parents.
Firstly, the parcels might have an effect on someone's pride due to the stigma attached, especially if the produce handed out seems like leftover, pre-cut scraps. And choice plays a large factor in children's diets. Taking that away can make it unnecessarily difficult for parents that may already be struggling with keeping them happy out of school. There's a hygiene concern with giving food for a 2-week period when they could buy fresher and stick to use-by dates. And in terms of financial efficiency, the money spent on packaging and distribution is unnecessary. Some parents will also be spending money on fuel to collect food from pickup points. And essentially respecting parents to choose their own child's food from supermarkets is much more empathetic and economic. This whole issue shows evidence that they aren't benefiting from bulk quantity buying via the contractors.
Other organisations have made charitable gestures to try and improve the situation for those that have ended up with less than they can get by on, such as local community surplus programmes. And Marks and Spencer's have also offered to top up a 1-week voucher and provide £20 worth of food instead of the £15. However, as we're talking about here, most of the schools had decided to provide their own parcels in association with contractors. So that's not particularly useful for the majority of school children that have been affected by this issue.
Over on LinkedIn, we saw some feedback from business owners who confirmed they could do better with the allocated budget and questioned whether due diligence had been completed in relation to the awarding of this contract. It does also show that suppliers of these large government contracts, which have been exposed as inadequate by the public via social media, will also then be put under scrutiny by peers, which makes it harder for them to deny wrongdoing and hide questionable business practices. As distrust spreads through the business community, it could prove costly for Compass Group as customers may choose to move to suppliers that demonstrate more transparency and better ethical values.
In Chartwell's official response and apology, which didn't see nearly as much attention on social media, of course, they said that they had acted to repair the issue, as Ella mentioned, and they had considered several extra quality checks, including weekly fresh food parcels, to improve the quality that was in concern at this issue.
Yeah, it's great to see that at least Compass Group and Chartwells have been doing some stuff to try and put this issue right. We're definitely seeing more businesses being called out for wrongdoing, and other businesses sometimes having to step in and highlight the importance of an ethical approach. We recently spoke to Unify by Bruntwood about their vision of ethical business. As a new venture, they're keen to highlight the importance of transparency to clients regarding the resources that go into a job, as well as ensuring both fair pay and pricing. Here's what CEO Richard Burgess had to say.
We want to be a responsible, ethical business that is brilliant to work with and for, one that is fair and transparent and that always puts our customers and our colleagues first. There's a lack of information, creating a general mistrust around how providers are breaking down what they do in the industry. They're not being transparent in how they're contracting, invoicing and reporting, and it's led for many calling for an objective accreditation system for the FM industry. Take cleaning, for example. Suppliers will make a promise to clean a building, but not explain how. They won't break down the amount of resource needed, or the specification, or what the customer is getting. Many customers won't even question it, and it's only when they come to consider transferring to a new supplier that they see they didn't get the service they thought they were, and we've made a promise to do things differently. First and foremost, we charge customers only for what's being provided, and we pay our colleagues for the number of hours they've worked. Often this will go way beyond their contractual agreement, but if it's a quality job that's been delivered, it's only right that the person behind it should be paid for it.
I think Richard raises some excellent points there. Indeed, there does seem to be a shift in expectations around what is acceptable, and it's time for the FM industry to catch up with that. This story is a great example of the public calling out a corporate on its mistakes, and it's bound to make business partners rethink their supply chain and question whether they're really getting value for money. In the facilities management industry, a strong relationship with contractors is really central to success, and this week we've seen a new initiative from IWFM and NEC which seeks to improve expectation setting and communication between parties. Their new bespoke procurement suite specifically for the FM sector aims to tackle us and them thinking and provide more consistent procurement strategies to strengthen the sector as a whole. Going back to the free school meal scheme instance, it seems that Chartwells have looked to rectify things to meet contractual obligations, but this is an issue that the FM industry frequently faces when contractors are under-delivering on commitments and not making the necessary changes to put things right. By utilising tools like this procurement suite, facilities management teams may be able to minimise contractual disputes and mistakes like we see here.
So the story led us to think about the wider issue of companies who are publicly caught out for their wrongdoing and the damage it can cause. Obviously, this has not been a great PR exercise for Chartwells or Compass Group. And what we've certainly seen over the past few years within FM and workplace management is things that would have previously been nice to have or fluffier CSR points are now essentials. We've also seen that people, they don't want to align themselves with businesses that don't share their values. They don't want to work for them and they don't want to work with them. We've seen this recently with companies distancing themselves from the Trump Organization, JLL and Cushman & Wakefield being two of those in the real estate industry. But also, as Bailey has shown us, we as a generation now, if there's an injustice, we take to Twitter, we talk about it because we have a platform. Recently, we spoke to an interior design studio, Sheila Bird Studio, who have recently completed some iconic refurbs in Manchester. Atul Bansal, the co-founder, he spoke a lot about values, and he even said that he can predict a time where employees will take to social media to share if they're unsatisfied with a building. He explained that even within office and workplace design, people question the values of a building and whether it aligns with their business goals. He describes it as a pulse. Buildings need to have a pulse, a purpose, and shared values to attract the right occupiers. And it's something that he sees in client briefs now that wasn't being seen before.
Yeah, some of those Manchester refurbs are really impressive. I love the building designs that are all about community and collaboration. Those aspects really do seem to say a lot about an organisation's values, and it's easy to see how they will retain more business and higher quality employees as a result of that. Bailey, I know you've reported a lot on corporate social responsibility policy. What have you seen in that arena lately?
Well, luckily, it seems that companies are still really taking that into consideration despite the effects of the pandemic on the economy. I think it's clear more now than ever that businesses need to consider more than just the ethics of their product or service. The well-being of their employees and the well-being of the planet especially is vital in planning for workplace setup and operation moving forwards, because if we don't move towards the carbon neutral goals that many of the countries have set out to reach in 2050, and some companies even earlier than that, then we won't really have industry to build on in the future that is, renewable. We've covered a lot this year on the effects of the pandemic and what it's had on CSR, waste and sustainability targets, as well as the workplace dynamic. And as Ella just touched on, I think considerate company ethics make people feel more comfortable to align with a company, which, like you say, means that you have higher value employees. And if this bigger picture conscious approach can be implemented in the treatment of the staff through biophilic design and supportive team management, then a company has little to hide really from the public. And that's really important, because we have seen that where things are hidden, the reporting of distressed employees and the power of the media has the opportunity to really hold organisations accountable. So that really highlights the importance of transparency in an ever more technologically connected workplace, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any views on anything that we've covered, please feel free to pop them in the comments. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.